Well, thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thanks, Jamie Allman. Thank you, Ed Martin, Stacey Washington, for hosting us here. And thank you to America First Missouri PAC for setting this up for us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Austin Petersen, born in Independence. Like I said, raised on a horse farm in Peculiar, where we say the odds are with you. Not too far from a town called Liberty, which is what I'm all about. I was born, raised, and educated right here in the state of Missouri, and I'm running because I love my country, I love our Constitution, and boy, do I love freedom. And I plan to restore freedom here in the United States as your next United States Senator. Woo! I got some fans here, right? Like you said, I was a producer for Judge Napolitano at Fox Business. He called me the right side of his brain. And I was also a Tea Party organizer back in the early days, helping people like Mike Lee and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz get elected. I'm also a small business owner, so I know what it means to struggle to make payroll, and I believe that if we had a freer economy, our entrepreneurs would be much better off. Now here's what we're up against. The history of the United States has been a struggle between the industrialist North and the agrarian South. Missouri is an agrarian state. For too long, we have been dominated by the urban elites who look down on us from their ivory towers. The left is completely out of touch with the average Missouri citizen. A vote for Austin Petersen is a vote to restore a Jeffersonian republic, where states and individuals have the power to decide best our own destinies. A vote for me is a vote to restore the republic. I'm pro-life, pro-liberty, and pro-constitution. The next senator from Missouri. Thank you all, and I look forward to the debate.
First question is, where do you stand on securing the southern border and eliminating visa overstays through the full implementation of E-Verify?
Sure. Well, you know, always people ask, you know, what you feel about the wall. And I actually have revised my position on the wall recently. I do think we should have a wall to stop people from coming into from Arkansas and running in Missouri's elections. Just teasing, buddy. But of course, when we're talking about immigration, you know, we could talk about building a wall around the welfare state and making Bernie Sanders pay for it. But what they're really asking is, do you support a massive FDR-styled public works program that will raise spending, raise taxes, and steal land from Republicans in Texas? I believe we need a strict security check, a strict disease check, something like we had during the Ellis Island years. You pass the naturalization test and you can begin the path to becoming an American citizen. Visa overstays are a complicated measure. We should prioritize, of course, for criminality. The most dangerous, violent criminals should be the first to go. They should be deported, other side of the fence for now, for you. But to me, I think the problem is always going to be the incentives. You see, everything boils down to economics. If you have the wrong incentives in place, if you have a welfare state, you will always have people coming here for the wrong reasons. If you eliminate the problem at the root, eliminate the welfare state, then the only people who will be drawn to the United States will be drawn to the benefits that they can gain from hard work. My ancestors came through Ellis Island, they passed the security check, they passed the disease check, they didn't take a dime of welfare, they became productive American citizens, and the Petersens now have a legacy in the state of Missouri. That's how it ought to be, and that's what I advocate.
Yeah. Do you like his Twitter feed? Do you think it's effective? What do you tell people who say that it's not effective?
Great question. Actually, social media is a double-edged sword, and out of all of the candidates up here on stage, I have probably the most massive following of people, and it's gotten me in trouble before. And one of the things that I do believe in is I do believe in prudence. I actually think that there are times when you do need to exercise restraint. That being said, Donald Trump said if there wasn't Twitter, he wouldn't be the president right now. Because the media distorts what we say. I know. I've worked for major news organizations. I see how they shape the narrative. I see how they collude. I see how they fake the news. I know how it gets done. And I'll tell you this, if it wasn't for social media, there is no way that grassroots candidates like ourselves on this stage would ever have a shot to be able to get our message out. So I appreciate and applaud the president for taking the bold stance. No guts, no glory. Sometimes you do have to take it. But, you know, I would love to not be in a nuclear war with North Korea. That would be good, although it seems that that diplomacy was effective. So, again, I think that there's a lot to be said there. But we conservatives, I have been banned from Facebook twice for doing this. Yeah. Just for doing something something that all good conservatives would do, just giving away free AR-15s. I wrote a letter to Mark Zuckerberg and said, hey Mark, we know you're concerned about Russian interference in elections, so will you stop interfering with the election here in Missouri? Because we found out that their chief operating officer had been contributing the maximum to Claire McCaskill. The liberals of Silicon Valley are doing everything they can to stop another Donald Trump from coming down the pike. And we have got to do everything that we can to work together, to build committees of co-respondents. One day we will have another conservative alternative, but for right now, watch out. The liberals want to silence our free speech online. We got to fight back.
Out the laser damage that 2 Air Force pilots experienced. 2 Air Force pilots have had their eyesight damaged during sortie runs by Chinese pilots in the air, utilizing military-grade lasers. What actions would you take as senator to enable our pilots to fight back?
Does everybody remember when Donald Trump was asked about how he was going to defeat ISIS, and he said, I have a secret plan to defeat ISIS. I can't tell you my secret plan. Well, I have a secret plan to stop this, and I can't tell you this plan. Aww. But it would begin with diplomacy, first and foremost. We do have diplomatic tools in our toolkit that we should take advantage of. Of course, you can expel ambassadors, you can expel diplomats, you can withdraw your own from their country. There are tools that can be used in our tool chest. Work with the National Security Council. The first question, of course, is what is the proper role of the Senate in this? And that's to ensure that we have proper checks and balances. Also, there are pressures that we can exert that wouldn't undermine our economic values or our national security values, and that would be to do things such as engage with their competitors or with Taiwan, for example. Taiwan, of course, they see as part of their country, and we would prefer it, of course, if we could trade with them directly. So perhaps we could negotiate economic agreements with Taiwan as a threat, perhaps, for us to build up not only our national defense, but also as a way to build up our economy. A win-win for both and a lose for China.
I want to answer who your favorite living judge is and why. And I want you to say what the most important judicial decision that you think about when thinking about what judges you'll support.
Well, of course my favorite living judge is Judge Napolitano. I mean, come on. Yeah! How about we put him on the Supreme Court, right? My favorite living judge was Scalia. I've always been a big fan of Clarence Thomas, who is very liberty-minded. I give major props to the president for appointing Neil Gorsuch, because Neil Gorsuch has an expansive definition of privacy. And we have sacrificed our liberty for security for too long, folks. FISA courts, Claire McCaskill, the 60th vote to authorize the unconstitutional warrantless surveillance of American citizens. That is un-American. Claire McCaskill believes that if she wants to listen to your phone calls or read your emails, she doesn't need to go to a judge. And Josh Hawley does too. Do we want to replace one bad lawyer with another? We need strict constitutionalist judges, but we need constitutionalist senators too, which is why I should be your next senator from Missouri. I will protect all of your liberties all of the time.
Each candidate to name 3 areas in which they can easily best Senator Claire Bear McCaskill should you win the primary.
Absolutely. Well, I'll say this again in my closing remarks, but I do want to expand on this. I do believe I am the best candidate to beat Josh Hawley and then Claire McCaskill, because Claire is bad on privacy, she's bad on taxes, she voted against the tax cuts, and she voted against Neil Gorsuch. She's bad on criminal justice reform. She's bad on things that the Democrats wish that she was good on for American liberties. That's why she's going down this fall. She's the most unpopular senator in Congress, but somehow Josh Hawley's losing to her in the polls, FYI. That's a problem. You need a candidate who can get not only all of the Republican votes, all of the Libertarian votes, which, by the way, that was 6% the last time. 50% Republicans, 6% the Libertarians. I'll get most of the independents, and I'll get a few of the same Democrats that are left over, if there's any of them left. That's the coalition that is going to beat Claire McCaskill. If we do what we've always done, we'll get what we have always got. We've faced her head on twice. We need a candidate that can unite the clans. We need a candidate that can put together a coalition to fire Claire McCaskill. She's got $11 million in the bank. She's going to have $30 million to come after us this fall. But folks, if money could buy election, wouldn't Hillary be the president right now? So you're going to need a candidate who can work harder. You're going to need a candidate who can unite the clans. And you're going to need a candidate who's better on the issues. That's Austin Petersen for U.S. Senate.
Yeah! Which is better? Which is better? You have to pick one. Build the wall or drain the swamp. Okay? Wait. The next one is, which is better? Reince Priebus or General Kelly? Okay? Number 3. Favorite son of Trump. Your favorite son. You have to pick one and why. And the last of the 4 is, tell us something that you disagree with Donald Trump on. Okay? I'm keeping a mic so I can yell at you if you don't get it. 4. Got it? Austin, you get this.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready. Okay, so there's a lot of stupid questions in there that I won't answer. So I'll
get the hook, Jamie, get the hook.
Which is why I'll talk about where I agree with the president and where I disagree, because I think that's very important. Obviously, I completely agree with the conservative support Supreme Court Justice Mr. Gorsuch pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. We're all going to die, the liberals said. Somehow we survived. We survived the tax cuts. We survived North Korea, thanks to President Trump, and I give him my congratulations. Where I disagree with the president, and this is what makes me different than anybody on this stage, is that I will be honest with you. He threatened to veto the $1.3 trillion omnibus. He should have done it. That was on me. We need a strong national security, folks, but we should never go to war or engage in military action without proper congressional authority.
Yeah!
And I don't know about you, but when the hair on the back of my neck stood up the day that the Attorney General came out and got on his knees and said, oh, yes, we should ban firearms accessories with executive orders, Mr. President. Excuse me? That's to the left of the Obama administration. The Attorney General of this state is a constitutional lawyer, but you know what? So was Barack Obama, so I guess it just doesn't mean much anymore. I have no compromise to offer on your Second Amendment rights. It's time to stop playing defense. Go on the offense. They want to go hard left, we go hard right. We should defend the Second Amendment.
Yeah! Yeah!
Amen. But Eric Trump is kind of cool at this.
Specifically, the Chinese wish to deploy anti-satellite missiles, orbiting killer satellites, swarms of attack drones, hypersonic missiles, maneuvering warheads, lasers, and high-speed railguns in the coming years in a bid to leap ahead of our military supremacy. What would you do as a senator to stop this?
Great question. I guess the first thing that I would say is what's the proper constitutional authority that the senator has in this in order to make legislation? And so if I were able to make legislation related to this, I would say that we would need to ensure that our military had the kinds of tools to be able to work against these kinds of technologies. Probably the best thing that we can do is to work with some of the private space agencies right now that are making inroads, people like Elon Musk through SpaceX and others, who actually have much better technology than the United States does. We can't even put a ship into orbit anymore. People are talking about going to Mars. We can't even land on the moon anymore. So we've allowed our military, especially the technology wing of our military, to get far behind because we have been on a Cold War footprint. We've been on Cold War footing, since the 1960s. The Berlin Wall has fallen, but we're still worried about Russia. Maybe it's the Democrats who's still worried about Russia. Frankly, the biggest threats that we face right now is a military that has been degraded by presidents that have no strength. My confidence right now is that President Trump has the kind of strength that we will need to be able to counter these measures, and I look forward to working with him to make sure we have the strongest military that we can have so that we can make America great again and defend against these threats.
Yeah. But what steps should the University of Missouri take to recover their reputation
Good question. I speak on a lot of college campuses around the country, and I'll tell you this, the war for ideas, the battle for freedom is happening on our college campuses right now. It's not just enough for us to call them snowflakes. It's not enough to share a Ben Shapiro video. We have got to get into the battle for the war of ideas. Now here's the deal. Ben Shapiro, Glenn Beck, and I have been discussing this. We need a conservative and libertarian alliance to fight back against the forces of democratic socialism, or the Bernie bros will take over. So here's what Ben Shapiro and I have been discussing. Conservatives must accept the libertarian view of government. Libertarians must accept the conservative view of institutions, families, friends, neighbors, and churches that will be needed if we have a smaller government to solve society's ills. If we have a smaller government, we'll still have problems with the opioid crisis. We'll still have people who are out of work. But if we band together and we limit the size and scope of our government, then these institutions will be able to play a greater role. And if our young people are inspired by leaders like myself, who can work with people like Glenn Beck and Ben Shapiro, a libertarian conservative alliance will bring peace, prosperity, economic freedom, and personal liberty to the United States, and we will restore the republic, starting on the college campuses and spreading out across the United States.
Yeah!
He mentioned you by name. You are allowed to respond. 30 seconds, however.
Thank you so much. I want to warn everyone in this room about the threat of a potential Josh Hawley Senate campaign, and here's why. The never-Trumpers like Danforth and others who warned us when President Trump was coming to Missouri that we should push him away are the old establishment that are desperate to return to power. You know why? Because Trump kicked their ass, and they are coming back for a fight. And they support Josh Hawley, and they are doing everything they can to get back into power. We have seen many of these people creeping back. People like John Bolton and the neoconservatives who want endless war without any congressional authorization. We must push back. The Trump movement has destroyed the old establishment. We cannot let that happen again, what happened to the Tea Party. We need to continue the type of wave of limited government conservatives like Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, and others to help get the presidents back.
Yeah!
The day that the Attorney General of the state launched his campaign and his attack on the Second Amendment, I was in our Capitol arguing in favor of legislation that would get rid of dangerous gun-free zones in the state.
Yeah!
And I'm so glad this topic has come up because I actually think that the problem is that we're not going to have, anyone up here is going to have the proper authority to solve this problem necessarily. Let me tell you why. When you look at all of the different school shooters, there's one thing that almost all of them have in common. They all lacked good fathers. Now, now let me just say this. I have a wonderful father. My father, John Petersen, is here tonight. A U.S. Army Special Forces Green Beret. He taught me how to ride horses, bale hay, and how to use and respect a gun. Government has now replaced the role of father. If we have a big government, then fathers are not necessary. If we have a small government, fathers will be necessary once again. We need more good fathers like this man right here, John Petersen. That's going to solve the problem of school shootings.
All right, Austin, hang on.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. And one man, in his lifetime, plays many parts. I'm asking for you now to give me the part of your next U.S. Senator. Ronald Reagan, who was also an actor, said that you and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope on earth, or we will sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness. The debate in our country is no longer about left or right, black or white, or Republican versus Democrat. The debate is now about big government versus small government, authoritarianism versus libertarianism. The young people of today, up there, are watching very closely what we do here. The decision we make in this election can determine the fate of an entire nation. Will we give in to fear and allow politicians to convince us that only they can save us from the boogeymen of their own creation? Will we trade our liberty for security, knowing full well that if we do, we deserve neither and we will lose both? What if we remain divided up here amongst ourselves, splitting our votes so that Mitch McConnell's swamp pit can divide and conquer us? I ask you tonight to consider that our campaign alone has the infrastructure that is required to not only defeat Josh Hawley, but also Claire McCaskill. In fundraising, we've raised more than all of the other candidates on this stage combined.
Yeah.
In social media, even Claire McCaskill cannot hold a candle to our ninja army who is watching tonight.
Yeah.
But I tell you now, a Liberty Republican is a different kind of a Republican. I am the only candidate on the stage who can get all of the Republican votes. That's 50%. All of the Libertarian votes, that's 6%. That's a victory right there. Most of the independents, and as I've said, a few of the same Democrats who still care about civil liberties. That is the coalition that beats Claire McCaskill, and we must beat her. We have to. I'm asking you tonight to come together, join our campaign. If the grassroots unite behind one single candidate, we will win. If we divide ourselves, we will lose. Thank you all for your time. Please vote for me on August 7th in the Missouri Republican primary so that we can fire Claire and make America great again. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
The last thing I'm disappointed with the president on, I'll be honest with you, because I love that guy.
If you see my truck, I got a Maca truck. If you see my truck, I got a Maca truck. If you see my truck, I got a Maca truck.
You didn't smoke it, you just have edibles.